Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law here on WMRC First Class Radio.
Watch your levels. Rick said watch your levels.
But it's my enthusiasm.
I know
I can't. How am I supposed to check my enthusiasm?
Passion about radio.
This is John Drohan from Main Effort Financial, and I am also joined by my dear esteemed colleague, Mr. Jay Marsden, attorney at law with the Marsden Law Group, and of course our dear friend Christian, who is filming for the Holliston Cable Access TV, and we are all of us here. We're like a team.
The family.
We're a team.
We
are the Money in the Law team on my FM 101.3. We are
also streaming live and on demand at the Media Center, WMRCDailyNews.com.
And that as well.
Add that in there.
That as well.
The interweb, as my mom would call it.
So yeah, you can hear us on the interweb. You can see us on the interweb at the Holliston Cable Access TV station, as a matter of fact, which is actually, I mean, listening on the radio is awesome, but when you get to see this show, especially two very young looking,
very young looking.
And I mean, I won't say that I'm attractive. I think you're a good looking guy.
I can pull it off. I think I can pull it off. I guess
I
still got some skills.
You clean up. That's right. You clean up all right.
This morning, walking out of the house this morning, my daughter says to me, "Dad, I kind of like the ensemble you have going on here." And the joke, of course, is that for the uninitiated at home, we're business suits up top.
Yeah.
But we're flip-flops and, party shorts.
In case I have to get on a conference call something.
That's right. In case I have to do a talking head appearance on, CNN Money or something like that. Right?
You never know.
But my daughter was funny. She's like, "Dad, I'm kind of digging the outfit." So I said, "Hey, whatever, Anytime a teenager says you're digging the outfit, you must be doing something right."
You feel good.
Yeah,
like, really?
yeah. And it wasn't board shorts, so I'm, pulling that off, right? So I get that going for me. How's your summer going?
Oh, so good so far.
Great.
So we took the week off. I took the week off of 4th of July,
must be nice.
Which was why not?
I know,
right? Why not? So and next year 4th of July, if I understand how the calendar works, it's going to be on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's
tough.
That's a tough decision. That's a tough decision.
You could take 2 weeks off.
Do you extend or start early?
I think you take that week. I think you have to take the week. I think folks take the week. This year, what about the weather? You were down the Cape, obviously,
fantastic.
for 4th of July.
Yep, weather was fantastic.
So your weather was fantastic. So we got lucky with the weather, and it was Tuesday, and I'm like, oh, it's 4th of July. Why would I leave?
Yeah.
Why?
The weather was great, and the beach on Sunday, the Sunday before the 4th, never seen it so busy. Couldn't get on the beach.
It was
parking lot full.
You're right.
Lot
and
full
up where
sign.
we were, it was packed.
Yep.
It was packed.
Yep.
I think it was like we were on Cape Cod, and we're like, hey, where is everybody? Oh, they're here.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, they're all at the beach.
Everybody's here.
Yes, they're all at the beach. That's where they were. So good weekend, good time of the year. Between now and probably mid-August, it gets a little crazy because we've talked about this in the show before. Once that mid-August number gets here, it's over. School starts, the calendar, your inbox just implodes. I mean, it's over.
School's over,
and
right.
your calendar fills up. There's not a whole heck of a lot you can do, and so you got to make you have to practice. You got to practice retirement while you can, which we've talked about before on the show. Practice your retirement.
So speaking of practicing retirement, the summer is the best time, we say, to practice your retirement.
Why wouldn't it? Yeah.
Right. So just for those of you to get you brought up to speed, what we mean is that when you go on vacation, if you're on vacation, you need to, or if you're planning a vacation or some type of getaway where you're not going to be, connected to your job. This is where you kind of, and especially if you're, if you have like children that are a little bit older, maybe they're not there the whole time, they're out running around, right? This is the time where you can hey, let's see what it's like. Let's see what it's like for the two of us to go and do something. Maybe not the two of us.
I mean, of course not. No,
not that that's. No. I would go
if offered.
I'd go bike riding with you on the bike trail. Sure.
Yeah. Not two separate bikes though. Not one bike. Not one tandem bike. Two separate bikes.
You'd be in the back.
Absolutely. Not doing that.
So you go and you spend some time and kind of do a little trial run on what vacation is or what your retirement is going to be like, and this is the time to do it. And the cool thing about doing that is you're probably don't have a lot of pressure on you. So there's not a lot of, it's not like there's, it's not like, what money or anything like that, or the kids aren't ever going to come home. But you can kind of at least see what it feels like, particularly with just the two of you and being able to kind of occupy your time and find something to do. And I'll tell you what, the people who do that, the people who take the time to really think about, like, make a plan for their retirement.
Absolutely, yeah.
Those are the people that have they hit the home runs. They're the ones that have the retirements that that you see on TV. Like,
but I mean, it's the idea that you wake up and you say to yourself, okay, I'm again we joke about practice retirement, right?
Look at your levels. Hold on, let me just.
Perfect.
We're gonna bring you down
Perfect.
a little bit.
All right. Well, again, you get enthusiastic about this stuff, but we talked about the idea of this practice retirement, right? And that's you get up and what are you doing? You're doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily jump up every morning and say, oh, my God, I can't wait to fight for a parking spot in that commuter rail lot and jump on that train that may or may not break down on my way to work in the middle of July with no air conditioning in the car. I can't wait to do that.
I can't wait to get dressed really fast because I'm late.
Yep.
And
I can't wait to put on a wool suit in July and get in and drive into work. I mean,
best.
So again, you're doing what you ideally have chosen to do, right? It's practice retirement, and if you're going to spend your week, you may be active. You may say, look, I'm going to play 1,000,000 rounds of golf. I'm going to hike 1,000,000 trails. I'm going to ride 10,000 miles, or I'm going to go fishing, or I'm going to hang out with the kids, or I'm going to hang out with my significant other. Whatever it's going to be, or it might be, look, I get a stack of books I want to get through, and I just haven't had a chance to get through them. I'm going to go read some books. I'm going to go out to dinner. I'm going to relax. That's your time to say, basically, can I entertain myself, right? That's it. It sounds crazy, but it's not crazy.
But think about it, right? So and then the other side of that is, let's say you've taken some time off, and you've taken some considerable time, weeks,
right?
And you're like, hey, here, I'm here, and I'm bumping into walls. I got nothing. I think about is, I'm business oriented. I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about like what I do. Let's say I'm a writer, or let's say I'm an engineer, and I think about that stuff, and I just can't shake it. And I feel like, well, maybe my work, or maybe doing something, having a purpose is I need that. I need that in my retirement. And I'll tell you what, most people, all of us need something. You need some kind of you need a reason to get up in the morning. And if your reason is to get up in the morning is to get to your tea time, then God bless you.
Go get them.
Go get them, right? And you can afford to do that, and that's part of your plan. But if you have to get up in the morning because you have to do something, you have to be in contact with people, you have to do your profession or whatever it is, then that could be your retirement as well.
Well, what a lot of people talk about too is they say, look, I took 2 weeks vacation, right? And they say, oh, the first week was crazy, and it was a lot of running around, and it was this and that. And the second week, by the time I realized I wasn't going to go back to work the following, Monday, then the second week of vacation is arguably the best part of the 2-week vacation, right? Well, retirement works the same exact way, right? You're going to retire. There's going to be a flurry of activity, but at some point you're going to sort of settle in and say,
going to settle, yeah.
All right, I mulched everything I needed to mulch. I trimmed everything I needed to trim. All the paint is done on the house perfectly the way I want it.
I painted my room 4 times.
That's right. I've completely finished doing everything I wanted to do, and that's it. My car's been waxed and washed 13 times. It's been detailed, and that's it. And that's, at some point you say, okay, now what am I going to do? So I'm glad that you had a thoroughly enjoyable retirement practice. But not a retirement practice like the one you have, but the practice retirement.
Well, let's just say this. What retirement isn't going to be is probably like a house that sleeps 10 with like 15 people that are there, sleeping on floors and sleeping bags. If your retirement's like that, then you may want to reconsider like what your vision of retirement is, because that's going to get old.
Yep, you have some work to do. So.
Right, go back to work.
Yeah, you might have reconfigure a couple of things. Recalculate, as they would say.
All right, so today I have handed the baton over to the legal side. So today we are going to do law.
All
We're
about
going to talk
the law.
And I'm like your supporting effort. I am here to just talk law and ask questions and learn.
All right.
I want to learn from the mess. I am your grasshopper, and you are the sensei.
All right, great. Well, fantastic. Where's my coffee, sensei?
Can you put some wax on my card?
That's right. So before we go to the break, I think what we're talking about is this idea of last-minute planning. The idea is I haven't done anything. I every once in a while somebody will say, I didn't do anything. I didn't. We've dragged our feet, but something has happened. There's been some triggering health event that we need to sort of figure out, what the game plan is and what we're going to do, and can we do anything, right? And figure it out that way. That's the objective, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Is this idea of if you've left it to the absolute last minute, what are my options?
So we're not talking about your retirement. We're not talking about
your legal planning. That could involve some parts of retirement, right? It could involve some parts of retirement.
So it's more of our estate, like my estate planning, and maybe my Medicare plan, my Medicaid planning.
Yeah, some legal issues around some of the things that may or may not have been done, and we'll make a couple of assumptions.
Can we talk about trusts?
We can talk trusts.
I love talking about trusts. I love talking about trusts. All right, so when we come back, we're going to talk about trusts. We're going to talk about not end of life, but last minute planning if I haven't done anything, and we're going to learn all the smart stuff. When we come back here on Money in the Law, My FM 101.3, Holliston Cable Access TV, Jay Marsden, John Drohan, Christian, and the WMRC guys too. They're here.
Yeah,
too.
there's
like 1,000 of them here.
The back of the house.
We'll be right back.
And you're back. Money in the Law, First Class Radio, WMRC, streaming live on demand at the Media Center at WMRCDailyNews.com. Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Made Effort Financial, and by all accounts appear to be a gigantic thunderstorm rolling in here from the sounds of what's going on outside. So hunker down, folks. Turn up the radio. Turn up the radio.
I heard the weather was good. It was supposed to be good for Saturday.
Put the thunder shirt on the dog. Put the thunder shirt on the dog. Okay, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Right. The thunder earmuffs.
That's right. So,
the thunder helmet.
So prior to the break, we were doing our intros for today's topic. So the idea behind today's topic was you haven't done anything. There's no planning been done. You know, you've been talking about it forever, and something happens.
Better call Saul.
That's right. Better call Saul. So we're available 24 hours at Marsden Law. So you figure out what's going to happen, and this is not unusual. Somebody will call all the time, and they'll say, "Hey, you know, we didn't do anything, right?" And we're going to figure out what we want to do. So the first question when somebody says to me, "Have you done anything?" I say, "Well, define we haven't done anything." Meaning, hopefully, you have a healthcare proxy or a power of attorney in place.
Right.
Right?
So
out of every document that somebody tells me they don't need, those are the two.
The will I can deal without, right?
Yep,
The will I don't need,
yep.
right? I don't need I don't need the testamenary trust.
I don't need the living will. I don't need
the revocable will.
Right,
I don't need the
that's
irrevocable will. Yeah, I just need durable power of attorney, durable power of attorney, and healthcare proxy.
And the reason that if you have those, and again, this is involving like you have some time. This isn't somebody's going to pass away.
Did you sign the durable power of attorney? Because you have one. Am I supposed to do? Aren't we supposed to
sign one for me? So you can transfer
right
show
here.
over to me.
I just want to see. Yeah, just right here. Durable.
But the reason I say that is because if you have the healthcare proxy, we've talked about this in the show before. That keeps you out of court and needing to get a guardian. Right? And the reason that's important, without getting into all the stuff that we've talked about.
Because it takes time.
Well, not only does it take time, okay, that's the first thing. It's expensive, right? Because guess who's the first person that's going to have their hand out? That's me, to get paid, right, to solve this problem,
bless you.
right? But the other thing is, it creates real problems, all right? And we went through this recently on a sort of a more personal matter, but they asked all the way through the process. Somebody always asked, and I know that internally within the circle of trust, everybody knows who's supposed to make the call.
Right.
But guess what? Outside the circle of trust, not only does nobody know, nobody cares. Okay? Nobody cares how wonderful everybody treats each other.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, somebody who's trying to help you in these last-minute situations, somebody is going to say, who's the healthcare proxy? Who can sign this paperwork to authorize, you to transfer a loved one from facility A to facility B, or to get somebody home? And again, everybody knows who is supposed to do it or who should be doing it. But if you don't have it written down, the rest of the world doesn't care. And you could
and legally they can't do it. They can't they can't say, hey, based on what you want to do, son or daughter or whomever, that they can't do it legally. They can't move them.
That's right. And that's where you're going to find yourself really jammed up, because you're going to want to do something. And we've talked about this on the show. These documents that you do for yourself or for other family members, these are tools in a toolbox. And if you don't have them, then it doesn't matter what you think you want to do. You can't do it, right? You can't change a flat tire if you don't have a jack and a spare.
That's right.
So you can stand there all you want and say, we need to change this flat, but you can't get it done. These documents are the same thing. You're not going to know what you're going to need to do at these sort of, crazy, chaotic times, but you're going to need the ability to do it. So without the healthcare proxy, you're off the guardianship world. You're off to the court world. You're off to having to get, and in addition to just getting named the guardian,
Yeah.
the ongoing work and oversight that has to happen is it's just a gigantic amount of work that when you've got all this other stuff on your plate, having to fill out a guardianship care plan for the probate court and get that filed and hope they approve it, it's just a headache.
It's a headache, and you got to do it. I mean, wherever you are, you got to drive there. You got to. I mean, it'll take up. I mean, like you said, it's going to take up so much of your time anyway.
That's right.
Just to do the normal care stuff, especially if somebody is needs care, needs particular care, but to have to go and do all that as well, it makes me tired just thinking about it.
That's right. So it's the first thing I'll ask: do you have a healthcare proxy? If you don't, hopefully, the person that we're trying to do some help or trying to help has the ability to sign a healthcare proxy, and that's one of the first things we'll do.
Yeah.
We'll get a couple of witnesses together. We'll get the healthcare proxy signed. But right along with that is
my durable power of attorney.
Do you have a durable power of attorney? Do you have a durable power of attorney? Why is that important?
What is a durable power of attorney?
Well, it's the document that allows somebody to make banking and financial decisions for you. All right. So when you want to go and help, somebody and use their money to pay for stuff, right? And they have a bank account. You want to walk into the bank and say to the bank, "Hey, I need to be on this account. I'm helping this person out." You think the medical providers are suspicious. Good luck to you. The bank is going to see. And we joked about this earlier today when I was talking to somebody, and I said, "Look, the banks and the financial world, or the financial, the investment world and the investment houses and the brokerage houses, they do really well with stuff that's nice and tightly put together right in their box."
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But as soon as it goes outside the box, all holy heck breaks loose, right? And they have no idea not only how to handle it, but by the way, nobody handles it. All this stuff that they say, this is above my pay grade, everything is above their pay grade.
And that's how they. I mean, you think about it, right? Like they're used to dealing with just the regular kind of day-to-day operations.
You want to deposit a $100 check at the bank?
We can do that.
You want to take $100 out of the bank?
You want to set up an account? I can do that all day. I can do that left-handed.
Yep. You want to get yourself added as power of attorney on an account? Whoa, stop everything.
Because well, and in defense of the banking industry and in defense of the finance industry, that's how they get in trouble.
Well, it's the keys to the kingdom. That's exactly right.
That's how they get in trouble. And if they give away those keys and they say, "Hey, you know what? Oh yeah, sure, we'll put you in," and then somebody gets ripped off, then forget about it. That's when they not only do they have to reimburse, it's going to cost them money, but at the same time it's going to cost them some credibility, and it's one of those things where they do everything in their God-given power to avoid getting in those because the government will crack down on them so fast.
Well, and again, it's not in their day-to-day wheelhouse. They just don't want to do it. So those are the.
And they don't want to mess it up.
That's right.
They don't
so those are the first two questions I asked. Do you have a healthcare proxy? Do you have a power of attorney? Now, the reason that those two are important is what we just talked about, keeping you out of guardianship, and conservatorship, which is the financial side of guardianship, is as big a hairy mess as guardianship is for the person, right? Because now you have to report everything back to the court as to how you handled, if you can't get the power of attorney, how you handled all the assets.
Yeah.
And there's an ongoing reporting requirement, and you may have to carry a bond. Mm-hmm. So meaning that if your parents are of means and you think you're just going to walk into court and get appointed as the guardianship, they may say to you, "Yeah, well, you're going to go get a corporate bond, and that could cost you $5,000 a year, right? So you're going to write a $5,000 a year check for a corporate bond to make sure that you don't steal the money, right?" And again, all of this can be avoided by having, and if you think you're going to jump on the web, this is the other thing. People say, "Oh, I'll just jump on the web here. We'll bang out a couple of these documents." Some of the stuff on the web's a little thin.
Yeah.
And the reason that you don't realize that until after, and then you show up at the document and you say, "Well, we get this one pager right here that a friend of mine gave us or whatever." And it may not get the job done. And
if it doesn't get the job done, then you're right back where you started. You're at the back of the line.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So those are the first things I say is, do we have these documents? If we don't have those documents, to your point, I don't care about a will at this point. Those are the first two things I have to make sure somebody has, and hopefully they have the capacity to sign those. Now, once they have those in place, then there's some other work that can begin, right?
Right.
And
Then the wheels can start turning, right? We can make this. We can administratively we can position to where we can get to the point where we can make these next decisions that we haven't made yet.
That's right. And you mentioned it early on in the show. And so the first thing I'll say is, if the power of attorney gives you the authority to do this, and I hope it does because it makes your life a lot easier, what the first thing we might try to do is we might try to set up a trust for the benefit of the person that we're trying to help out, okay? And the reason that we're going to try to do that is because we can put all of those assets into a trust, make them available, use them to take care of somebody if we need to take care of somebody, and if that person passes away, all their wishes can be followed out so that we can do exactly what they might have wanted to have happen. Now, let's say that their wishes are either unclear or you can go back and you can take the last will that somebody had, and you can say, look, even if somebody shows up and says, I have this old will and I have this old healthcare proxy and an old power of attorney, we may still want to do a trust, and we may go back and look at that old will and say, well, if that's the last expression of their wishes, and if they pass away today, that's what's going to distribute their assets. Let's take those old will wishes, let's put them in their trust, and then let's use the power of attorney to fund the trust.
Wait a minute. Now, it sounds to me like, if I'm, and I'm always a little skeptical. Not of all lawyers, not of the present company, it's good, but,
of course.
maybe somebody's trying to rip me off. So I'm like, wait a minute, he's got a will. I'm going to play the devil's advocate.
Sure, go ahead.
Wait, he's got a will. He's got a will. He's coherent. Let's say it's my dad, right? He's coherent. He's like, he can talk. He's standing right here. You can talk to him, talk to me, right? Yeah. And we have a will. Like we did this will like 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Sure.
And nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, right? So what do I need here? Why do I need this trust? Why am I going to pay you whatever I have to pay you, whatever your fee is to write this trust for me? Thanks for doing the healthcare proxy and power of attorney. That was great. We'll pay you for that. But why do I need to go further for this trust?
Well, the first thing I would say is the beauty of having the will, the trust, is that you're going to avoid probate. That's always the big thing, right?
I wanted to guess that.
I know you. I should have made a multiple choice.
That's okay.
So the answers are A, so I get a bigger fee. B, to avoid probate. C, I don't know what C would be, but
all the above.
Make myself a larger fee. D, give myself a bigger fee, right? So
be able to extend my relationship with the client in order to get more fees.
That's right. Potentially manage the money on the road. That's right. So the trust idea. The trust idea is, again, I'll go to clients and I'll say, look, we can. And by the way, the caveat on all of this is, look, if somebody comes in and says, my parents aren't doing well, or my father's not doing well, or my mother's not doing well, and what do you think, we should do? That I will say to the client, before we dive into how much we can do, the first thing I'll say to somebody really is, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Right? It sounds terrible, but the first thing I would say is, if it's a choice between go to the bank and try to hassle with somebody at the front counter over this power of attorney, or spend the right amount of time and the right way in mom or dad's final days, I'll say to somebody, you're going to make a choice here. The ship truly may sail.
Well, that's and as with all of these situations, you kind of evaluate. Okay, what are we dealing with? Like, is my parents or my aging parents, are they instantly incapacitated, right? Or is it a dementia thing where that could cause like other problems, right? Because maybe that means they're home, but they're not of sound mind to make decisions and to make these to make changes in their estate plan or things like that. So
that may be a situation where we have all the time in the world, right? I mean, if it's a dementia, Alzheimer's case, but physically they're very fine, they may go 6 years. They may.
So that's a different can of worms that you have to open, or a different set of problems you have to solve. So, but I'll tell you. So if a client calls me and says, "Hey, my lawyer is telling me, from my dad's lawyer is telling me I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this." I'll go through it and I'll say, okay, and I'll get on the phone with the attorney. I'm like, okay, explain to me, explain to me in third grade English kind of why we're doing this. Why do I want to do A, B, and C? And the attorney, if they're worth their salt, they're going to say, this is why we're doing it, bud. And, take notes, because you're going to want to tell this to your other clients. And they say, here's why we're doing this. You're doing this, for reason A, for reason B. If a client says to me, hey, you know what, they want to put this, they want to do this this revocable trust. They want to do this revocable trust in order to he's got to, I'm like, like, dude, do the revocable trust. I go, you could go through probate, and 2 years later, we'll still be talking about this.
Yep.
Like if your parent, if your dad's going to die tomorrow, then, no, do the revocable trust because you're going to save yourself so much time. And you know what? Talking about the trust, like when your assets are in that trust, it's easy.
That's right.
It's clean. It's like, here, what do I do? What does the trust tell me I can do? Oh, look, I'm the trustee. I can do A, B, C, and D. I'm supposed to do D, E, F, and G. There you go. It's simple.
That's right.
And there's no probate. And it's what else, right? It's private, right?
Private. That's right. It's not a public record. So that means that there's going to be less fighting, which means and to your point, it's going to cost you. People say this all the time. I don't want to do it. I don't want to spend the money on the front end to do it. I'm going to save the money. And then they'll say to me, what do you think the probate costs are? Well, the probate costs they could be anything.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know who you go talk to. Some lawyers charge an hourly rate. Some lawyers charge a percentage of your assets that are being probated.
Yeah, they do.
So you toss a house and a couple of 401ks
and your life insurance.
You toss some life insurance in there.
Let's do a percentage of my gross estate.
Yeah, it's a $10,000 check. No question.
My dad's got a $2 million life insurance policy, and he owns $1 million house. Okay, so now I'm already at $3 million, and I haven't even opened up anybody's checkbook yet.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, and the attorney will say to you, but that's a life insurance policy. Why should I pay you a percentage of the assets to do the probate work on a life insurance policy that may or may not have to go through probate? And the lawyer answer is going to be, well, because you're probably going to ask me questions about it, and you're going to get the advice, and you're going to ask me a question. So I don't want to parcel out the advice and say, well, I'll charge you $5,000, but don't ask me about any questions about life insurance, right? No. They're just going to say, look, if this is the whole estate, there might be an estate tax return in there. They're going to make it as relatively straightforward as they can, and it can get on the back end. It can get really expensive, and on the front end. So again, all of this is predicated on the idea that you're.
We haven't done this yet.
Well, that you're willing to sort of go through and do the work, and there's not like a real urgency, right? Now I'm thinking think about it this way. Think about like you have 6 months, right? I mean, you don't have 6 days, because I would say, look, spend 6 days with mom and dad. That's the right way to spend that time.
We'll sort it out. Yeah.
That's right. But if you get 6 months and there's some time where everybody's not standing over the bed.
Hospital
that's
bed,
right. That's right. That's a different animal, right? So you have some time. So the first thing you're going to do is and then the other thing I tell everybody is, the first thing I say to somebody is, does that person that we're worried about, do they own anything in their name alone, right? Because if it's a husband and wife scenario and they don't own anything in their name alone, everything is held jointly, the urgency really gets reduced dramatically.
Right, because if one is healthy and one isn't, then you don't have to worry about the house, because everything's going to pass to.
That's right.
If there's an imminent passing of somebody, then it's going to pass. Right, it's going to pass to the other person.
That's right.
And then you talk about, like we talked about. We mentioned life insurance. We mentioned. Or if they have a retirement plan, a 401k, an IRA, or things like that, those things will pass via a beneficiary. So those two aren't going to be subject to probate.
No,
so right.
That's right.
So you're right. So if all we have is the house, we have our joint checking account, I have my IRA, you have your IRA, and that's it. And we have those 4 things. Then we're okay.
That's right. You're very good shape.
Then there's not like this. Oh my God, we have to decide everything. We have to make these decisions right now. One, if we're talking like let's say it's just one parent, like it's only one person. So once they pass away, there's no spouse to leave it to. And then there's the other thing, like you said, if there's property in there, and that you're limited by your own imagination as to what you can think of. Like, well, if I owned a house from a previous marriage,
that's right.
Or if I inherited property, or if I we're not talking about like community property state, but like if I have a bank account that's only my bank account, right? And a lot of people, you have clients that do that, right? Like, hey, we like to keep everything separate. All right, well, good luck.
And that's fine. And keeping everything as separate is fine. Understanding why you did it. I mean, if you're keeping things separate, you could show up and you could say somebody, I want to put myself on the account as a death beneficiary, right? So I'm not on the bank account. But if something happened to person A or person B, the money would go to somebody without having to jump through the probate hoop. And you may use your power of attorney to go in and do that. You might go, look, I'm just going to add, my significant other or one of the kids' names on the account to make sure that if something happens, this account goes somewhere and we don't have to jump through all those extra hoops to kind of tackle it and unravel it and pull it apart. And it doesn't always work that way, but that's the idea. And the banks, I could tell you that there's a fair amount of pushback on either adding names or adding death designations on these accounts, because the banks are really worried that you are, in some
taking
way,
advantage of somebody.
and you're messing with somebody's other distribution wishes because they know the will says everything goes. And by the way, this is an important issue. Somebody might have a will that says everything goes to the kids equally. Single individual, something happens to me, everything goes to my kids equally. But what's going to supersede that will is the way all those accounts are titled, right? So if the IRA has just one kid's name on it, it's going to that one kid. If
Life insurance?
Life insurance has one kid's name on it, then it's going to go to that one person. If they're on a bank account or a brokerage account for, quote, convenience purposes only, that money's going to that one person.
If it's a joint account, right?
That's
if
right.
It's a joint account. It's going to the other joint holder.
That's right. That's right. And this is what creates problems all the time. Everybody
this is what creates some sibling rivalry.
Well, that's right, because everybody says, I know Ma's will leaves everything to everybody equally,
straight
right?
across.
And Ma sleeps like a baby every night, knowing that that's what happened. But we've talked about this before on the show. What nobody recognizes is one of the siblings, in an attempt to help out
do the
Mom,
right thing,
says, well, put me on Ma's bank account and I'll help her out. And then if something happens, Ma's $200,000 bank account goes right to that one sibling. And that one sibling may do one of a couple of things. They may write checks to everybody, and everybody toasts Ma's memory, and they all walk off into the sunset singing wonderful tunes. Or that daughter or that son says, I did more for Ma than the rest of you riffraff.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? I'm going to put that money in my pocket, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, that's the thing. Late. I mean, you talked about, life insurance is one thing because the life insurance is just a cash, you'll get cash. But if it's an IRA, that's a different animal, right? So if it's an IRA, so let's say most of my assets, a big chunk of my assets have $1 million in an IRA. If I die, and let's say that my wife predeceased me, so I die and I have all three of my kids as or I have one of my kids as the beneficiary of the IRA, but my intent is that I wanted to have all my kids get it. It's not happening.
No,
it's not happening because now the inherited the one who's the named beneficiary, they get that money, they get the $1 million, and guess what? In order for them to share it with their brother and sister, they have to give it to them. They have to gift it to them.
Well, and if it's an IRA, they can't gift it to them. They're going to take the money out of the IRA. They're going to eat the taxes on it, and that's going to go to all the beneficiaries after tax.
Yeah, so that's.
And by the way, people say all the time, well, there's, I wouldn't do that, and I'm not saying that people do it. I'm not saying they don't do it. What I'm saying is, in a particular moment, people make decisions. For example, and this is very common, where somebody says, my son is in the middle of an ugly divorce. My son's marriage is unraveling as we speak.
I don't want him to have. I don't want his wife to have exposure to this.
That's right. So that's a very common scenario where somebody will take somebody temporarily in their mind off of a retirement account, off of a brokerage account, they take them out of the will because they're skipping and then what happens is time marches on, life happens, and then you forget that they weren't even on the paperwork anymore, and all of a sudden you say to yourself, oh my God, I have to change this. And you don't change it, and something happens to you, and that money goes, and you end up leaving somebody out. And then after the fact, everyone's left to figure out, well, why did Mom leave out John?
Yeah.
Did she leave John out because
there's a reason? Yeah.
Well, there could be a reason, right?
Yeah.
It could be sheer forgetfulness, right? It could be oh my God, she just forgot to put him on there. Or
it could be I knew exactly what I was doing.
It could be, it could be they borrowed money already. It could be she already made gifts to him. And you hear this all the time. People will say, look, I gave my kid money to buy his house.
I gave him $5,000 once.
So he's not getting any of my $1 million IRA, right? I mean,
he does not.
Never paid me back.
His, yeah.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons that people. So this is one of those. He
didn't make the bed when he left.
That's right. That's right. He left in a huff. It wouldn't take me to the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, good luck with that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of reasons. So these are the things that in the last minutes or in the last 6 months, if you will, when you're trying to figure these things out, these are all the questions that you want to ask, and you want to make sure that you understand. What are somebody's wishes? Is your wish that everything goes to everything equally? And then there's some, trust but verify, right? You want to check this stuff out and make sure that this stuff is going to happen.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then I want to come back and I want to ask some more questions about trust because
so excited.
I love hearing you talk about trust.
Me too. I trust you. Love it. All right.
I trust your knowledge of trust. All right, we'll be right back on Monday in the Law. On my FM 101.3, Jay Marsden, John Drohan, Christian from Holliston Cable Access TV, talking about some last minute planning or some like end of the road planning or
things to think about when you haven't thought about it yet.
Yeah, things that you probably should have done a while ago, but it just might not be too late.
That's right.
We'll be right back.
And you're back. Money in the Law, First Class Radio. Also streaming live and on demand at the Media Center at WMRCDailyNews.com, MyFM 101.3.
In the New England Fat Loss Center.
And the Fat Loss Center still, I believe, yep. Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, and John Drohan, Main for Financial, talking about that last-minute planning that may or may not have gotten done. And, again, I try to always put the caveat on this because, believe it or not all lawyers want to sound like they're cruel and focused on just one thing, but the idea that you have some time to sort of get your affairs in order and to sort of in what order you approach these things, right?
You're like the lawyer that cares. You're the lawyer.
I'm the lawyer with the heart.
You're
lawyer
the
with the
lawyer.
heart. You like that?
I mean,
so put that
why
right on
is
the,
that
it's going right on the letterhead.
Why is that on your business
it's
card?
Right on the letterhead.
Say, right? Why is that on your website?
What I got to do is the M in Marsden is going to be in the shape of a heart. That's what it's going to do.
A heart.
It's going to come down.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Marsden Law. We care.
We care.
That's right. We care.
We care.
Oh, and by the way, this is just,
he signs all. He replies on all his emails with "I love you." I love you, Jay.
XXOO, XOXO. But here's the other thing. Unfortunately, if you want to think about this last minute planning. Here's the other thing. When you don't do anything, when you neglect to do this, and then you make the phone call that says, "I need you to move me to the front of the line because this is something that has to get done."
We're on the time. We're on the clock.
Well, you're on the clock, and you're on a different clock.
Yeah.
All right. This clock is usually works much faster. Right?
Yeah.
Meaning that your rate is whirring away because, if you haven't done these things and you need sort of immediate attention and you walk in the front door and say to somebody, look, I need to do, A, B, C, D. I hate to say it this way, but there's a premium for that, right? And it will, to not do the work ahead of time.
There is a premium.
So
we get this.
It may cost you more money. It may cost you more money. So it's in your own best interest to do this when there's no urgency or, hopefully, to have established a relationship with your attorney, so when you do call at the last minute,
right.
everything is already right there.
You don't get that. You don't get the how much does it cost, and the attorney says how much you got.
Well, the attorney says how much time we talk,
yeah.
right? Because this is what happens. And again, everybody does it differently.
Well, that's right. Because and it's true. You kind of have to put everything. You as the provider need to kind of drop what you're doing.
That's right.
And make this happen. Particularly if you're. And I'm thinking in terms of if it's me and I haven't done any planning and I'm God willing I'm 95 years old and I'm getting ready to check out and I had a stroke and I'm like, all right, I still have my wits about me, but I'm fading fast, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean I can see the light and there's things that I want to get done. Like I really wanted to make sure that my grandkids got their college paid for, or I really wanted to do, or I really don't want to pay any estate tax because I was fortunate enough to buy this like small little piece of property on an island called Nantucket, 100 years ago, and oh, by the way, it's worth $20 million right now, and I really don't want to get crushed in taxes. I want my, I've been lucky. I've lived a great life, and I really want to let my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids have like all that I worked for.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're right. So I may have like this timeline, this clock. I'm like, hey, look, I don't have a lot of time. It's got to get done quickly, and it's got to get done efficiently because, like we said, if it doesn't, then and things kind of fall through the cracks, or there's something I forget about, or something that
right.
That kind of gets left off the table, that could be a problem. And really, when you're if you're still like coherent and you're going to go. The last thing you want to do is be worried about things, be worried about money. You want to, like you said, you want to spend time with the people you love.
Yeah, you spend it the right way. You don't want to spend it in the line at the bank, right, waiting to see the bank manager to go over your POA. But here's the other piece. Here's the other piece of this is, there may be some things that you feel like, oh my God, I didn't do these 3 or 4 things and I really wanted to get them done and I didn't get them done. So now you're going to go get them done. Well, guess what? Your lack of planning is not everybody else's emergency.
Yeah.
All right? And I will tell you where this comes in all the time, okay? And it's a probate scenario. Somebody's already passed away, but this is what happens all the time. So somebody passes away, and mom or dad owned a house, okay? And everybody sits around and says, well, what are we going to do with the house? And it always takes a long time empty the house and go through mom's stuff and basically loot it for whatever things you feel are of
That was
value
yours, or that
yours.
that was
That's
yours.
right.
Yeah, that
and
was
then the
mine.
rest of it is
Yeah.
on the lawn for one of your siblings to man the estate sale. That's right.
Load that into that truck right there. Yeah.
That's right. And then after
Throw it
that,
into the dumpster.
and
yeah.
then after that, it's bring in the 1-800 junk guys, right? So after all of that happens, and they finally get the place emptied out, then what they do, they call the broker, right?
Yeah.
And the broker swoops in and says, "Oh my God, this place is a dreamy
Yeah.
palace that's going to be worth $750,000." And immediately, I
counting
can
their
tell
money.
you right, immediately you said it. The minute that number is the last words that the realtor hasn't even finished closing their lips after saying 750,000. They haven't even got to the D yet, and everybody is immediately doing the math. It's exactly what's happening, right?
All of a sudden, everybody feels much better.
And not only are they doing the math, they're taking the number that they heard in their head, the 750,
And they're doing
divided by
division,
5,
yeah.
divided by 5, let's say, right? And then once they've done that, then they immediately say, if I take $150,000 and I'm going to get from the sale of this piece of property, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy that Cape House that we've always dreamed about because we've been waiting Mara out for 10 years, God bless her. So they're immediately, now this happens all the time, if they don't already say $150,000 down payment, and I'm looking at about a $400,000. So now they're already taking the money that they haven't even received yet, and they're leveraging it into their next piece of property down the Cape.
Right.
Now, usually what happens is it doesn't end there. Usually what happens is they then go and start shopping for a place down the Cape because in their grief, the only thing that's going to help is a little real estate retail therapy, right? So now they go shopping for their place down the Cape, okay? And then what happens is two things. The first thing that happens is they never tell anybody. They never either think it through or nobody ever says to them, the house that you're selling up here, nobody has the authority to sell yet because you never did any planning. And so mom's house is in mom's name. And I have to get you appointed as mom's executor to be able to sell the house.
And that's going to take some time because
might
we're
take
going
some
through
time.
the probate court.
That's right. Because probate court doesn't always work as fast as you want the probate court to work.
No, not when you have this. Not when you have this this house in Hyannis, this one that I can just barely see water, and they're like, this thing's going fast. You got to make a decision on it, right?
So everybody. By the way, putting aside the fact that you probably don't even have the authority to sign all that paperwork, but guess what? You are on the fast track. Somebody on the other side of this deal has a purchase and sale, and they're expecting to close, and they want to begin this thing by 4th of July because they get a whole bunch of people coming down, right?
Because they've already invited their friends.
So that's usually.
In fact, I saw Jason Smith today. He was saying something about that. He
You've
wanted
already
to make
sent out the Evite. You've already sent the Evite. So what happens is I usually get a phone call that says, guess what? We're selling our mother's house. I go, oh, congratulations. That's great. And they go through the whole story that I just went through, right? And then they say this to me. The closing is in 2 weeks, okay? But I just discovered from the title people that nobody's been appointed as the executor of my mother's estate.
Can we get that done?
So can we get that done? That would be super if we could do that, okay? Now, I'm as thrilled as I am to take that call, the first thing I usually try to say to the client is, that's great. Now, the problem becomes there are some predetermined timelines, okay, that happen in the probate process. And you cannot, as much as you want to beg, borrow, and steal to move yourself to the front of the line, that stuff can't happen, okay? So you're going to lose a week just sending out a notice to everybody. And then you're going to lose a week because Mass Health has to get notified that this is going on and that you're going to sell this piece of property, and they might have a way to raise their hand and get tied up into this thing. So what will usually happen is I'll receive probably by the hour requests from the realtors who want to know how the probate process is progressing.
How are we doing?
Because guess what? Because we have a closing scheduled at the end of the month.
We want to get this done, right?
Yeah. We have a closing scheduled at the end of the month.
I sold that house.
Yep. And I will tell everybody for the 11th time, we've done all the paperwork. We've put everything in. It's in the probate court. It's, to some degree, it's out of my hands. I'll do the best I can, but you just don't get to walk in and say, I know that there's all these other people in line, but if you could just take care of me first.
Do they have a closing? Do they have a closing in 2 weeks? No, they don't. I do, though, right?
Do they want to get appointed? Because so do I, right? So this happens, and it happens with real estate all the time. And the reason it happens with real estate all the time is because you basically get control of the real estate even when somebody's not around, right? You want to go walking in and out of the house down in Hyannisport? Go ahead.
do it.
You want to get on and use it? Go ahead. You want to use the outdoor shower? Nobody cares, right? Because the name is on it, but you have keys and it's mom and dad's house and you can get in.
You've been going there for 30 years,
Yeah,
right?
big deal. But now
this is my house. It's
now
our house.
That's
Yeah.
right. And in some respects it is, but on paper it's not. Okay.
Now, let me ask you a question. What happens if that house was put into a revocable trust?
So if the house ends up in the revocable trust, the day after mom passes away or dad passes away, you as the trustee of the revocable trust have all the authority in the world,
free world,
to do whatever you want to do with that piece of property. No waiting, no lines.
Nope.
Go right to the front of the class.
When can we do the closing this Friday instead of next Friday?
That's right. Because I'm busy the following Friday because I'm going to be at my other new Cape house.
Because I'm going to be at the other house, which I just read.
And that's
And we joke about that. I mean, and in all fairness, like obviously this is like, if you have a parent who passes away and leaves a house. I mean, is it going to happen? I mean, could it happen? Of course it can. But, in the reality of the whole thing, if you've emptied out that house, you've kind of, if you've emptied, like I can imagine, like if, my kid's emptying out our house, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you've kind of gone through that. You've kind of traveled that grief process.
Yeah. You've cried in your old bedroom a couple of times.
Yeah,
it's all done. Ready to roll, right? Time to get,
So this isn't happening like we said, like if they pass away the next day, it's, you put the house on the market.
No. But the nice thing is, if you wanted to, and I'm not saying, and I agree with you, I'm not saying you would do it the next day. You might do it a week, 2 months. You would do it, by the way. You would
do it at your own schedule.
You beat me to it. You would do it whenever you want to do it, right? There's no...
And you're not waiting on anybody.
That's right. Now, the other thing is, if you're selling property, if you have a will, the will probably has language in there that says you can sell the property, and that's great. If you don't have a will, the buyer's attorney or the bank is going to say, we need you to get a license to sell from the probate court, which means you got to go to the probate court and say to the probate court, can I have a license from you guys that says that I have the authority to unload this piece of property? Again, it's going to take time, right? And usually, again, as much as we joke about that situation, that is not far off from what happens. It's happened to me twice in the last year. It happens all the time where somebody says, we have a closing, we have an offer, we signed a purchase and sale, the closing is at the end of the month, and we just discovered that nobody is appointed as the executor, so we need you to expedite that.
We need some magic.
Because everything else is hinging on it, right? There's a mortgage commitment. There's a loan. There's a rate lock involved.
And then there's cost, right? There's cost to hanging on the property as well, right? You got to pay taxes. You got to pay if there's a lien on it, right? You got to pay for the loan. So there may be some motivation to kind of if the decision is maybe we're going to sell the house.
That's right.
Then you don't want to hang around and just and if you have an offer and they're a qualified buyer, you want to get it done. But at the same time, if you haven't. It's like night and day. If it's in that trust, the trust makes everything so clean and so easy, and it's done. And there's none of that haggling. There's none of that that I have to wait in line. I have to deal with the probate because you're the probate court. You're not the only one standing in line. You're not the only one, waiting there in the morning. Oh, I got some probate stuff I got to take care of today.
And you don't know, what hinky thing might come up, right?
Right.
I mean,
think about when you buy a house, just like when it's not coming out of a trust or out of probate. I mean, there's always something, right? There's always something, right?
But the hinky thing could be something as crazy as, I signed my will, Jay, and the house is held by Joseph.
Yep.
Or, and somebody might say, well, you go back to the idea of, the clerk magistrate at the probate court might say, you know what, something about this just doesn't match up the way I wanted it to match up. So, what we're going to do? We want you to get in front of a judge and get the judge to approve this. And that means that the attorney might have to go to the judge and say, hey, Your Honor, there's a will that says this, the house is held this way, it's the same person, I have an affidavit. And that may be all it is. Yeah. But guess what? The judge isn't like sitting in their room waiting for you to come in, right? I mean, they're going to say to you, the judge hears these kind of cases, or the hearings for this type of matter are going to be held on Thursday. And today's Friday, so it's another push to the following week. And by the way, they're on vacation that week, right? So it'll be the following week. We'll see if we can get you in. And so again, things will be out of your control. And all of this planning that we've always talked about, the powers of attorney, the healthcare proxies, the trusts, all this is about giving somebody the authority to do certain things in a way that makes it much, much easier for somebody than to have to go and seek the permission from somebody else. And I guess that the point of that whole rant about the house and the timeline is that I can do a lot of things. Or your attorney can say, I'll come to your mother's house on Saturday. We'll sign the document.
You mulch?
I do mulching. We'll come to the facility Tuesday night at 8 if that's what works for everybody. Asking me to do something and asking me to move a couple of deck chairs around, that's not a big deal. But I don't always have, or your attorney doesn't always have the ability
control the court.
to impart the same degree of urgency onto other people. And other people will say, look, you're like, if you like a lot of these closing attorneys, you're fifth in line.
Yeah.
I got 4 other closings that have been lined up 2 months ago that those have to get done. You're fifth. I'll get to you when I get to you, and not a minute sooner. And that's it. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that is unfortunately how this process of waiting until the absolute last minute. It's Murphy's Law. You're bound to hit a hiccup in the road.
Something's going to make it
go off the rails for some reason. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So,
all right. So what have we learned?
Plan early and plan often.
Plan often.
And when in doubt, just pick up your attorney and call.
I think that's not a bad underlying lesson here. Is that because if you have an attorney, if you have a lawyer, right? That's my lawyer, right? And you've done business with him, like he's done your estate plan, he's done your, he's done like you've met, you've kind of had that plan.
Yeah, real estate transaction or two. Yeah,
that attorney he's there or she's there to talk to.
That's right.
She's there, and if they don't take your call, get a different attorney.
That's right.
Yeah, get a different one because if you paid money for an estate plan that attorney's got in their office or in their file cabinet and they're your guy, like that's it. Now you got a guy or a girl. Now that's your guy, right? And so you're like, hey, you know what? Listen, it may not be your parents, it may not be your father, your mother's attorney, but say, listen, this is what's going on. My dad just had a stroke and we're really worried he's not doing well. What do I need help with? What advice do you give me right now? And then you'll get the same thing you just heard over the last hour.
And think about how easy communicating with people today couldn't be easier, right? So you're gonna pick up the phone, you're gonna call your attorney, you're either gonna get them, you're gonna leave a voicemail for them, or you're going to leave a voicemail with their assistant, and then they're going to impart the importance of the call to you. But in addition to that, you can send them an email.
Yeah.
And then the attorney can say, look, I was looking through my emails later that day, or I went home that night, and I was going through some stuff. I got your email. So, again, you can get, most people in this day and age, most folks, I could be wrong, but most folks don't just turn it off at 5:01 and not at least take a check.
I turned it off on you the other day.
That happens. I get that. But if you need it, in some cases you can even text your attorney, depending on their willingness to be available like that. So if it happens, it's easier to communicate with people and say, look, what do you think is going to happen here? So, just again, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and check, and plan early, plan often. You can't do it enough. And if there's a major life event, that's the critical time to pick up the phone and say, somebody passed away, we had a baby, we moved, things like that. What should we do? Should we be doing something different? So,
yep. All right. So good lesson learned today. Good stuff. We'll be back next week, right?
Oh, we will.
We'll be back next week here on Money in the Law. I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial, Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group, and Christian from the Holliston Cable Access TV, because we love being on TV.
Yeah, we do.
Because the camera takes off 10 pounds.
If it can take, I got to talk to Dawn about seeing if it can take off 15 for me.
It's
been a busy summer. It's been a busy summer.
Right there with you. All right. So we'll be back next week, Money in the Law. We'll see everybody next Saturday.
Take care.